Welcome to Bacon's Lodge, where I will build many things, fix even more, and try to make it an adventure along the way. Welcome back to Bacon's Lodge Adventures. We're back here today in the mudroom, working on finishing up the cubbies, cabinets, whatever you want to call it, but clothes storage. In this video, I'm going to be putting in an interior trim to cover up where the paneling goes against the plywood, filling the holes, and then priming and painting the faces of it. I'll pretty much get it done. I do still have to figure out what I want to do with the bench area here, if I want to just paint it and leave it, or if we want to cover it with something else. If you have any ideas, I'm always open to suggestions. I would appreciate anything you got for me. Alright, I think it should be a pretty decent video. I am a little too cheap to buy the trim that I wanted to run in here because when I priced it out, it was about $100 worth of trim. I made this out of scrap pieces of 1x that I had from different projects. Actually, some of it's from this project here. And what I did is, I'll put in a clip here of it. First, I put the router on the edge of it here. It's the same profile that I put on the faces of the cubbies themselves. And after I put the profile on there, I ripped it down to 1 inch wide. It didn't take a whole lot of time, but this was free to me because it's just scraps from what I had. And I think I have enough to do it all. For these, I just pre-cut them all out. These are all pretty much the exact same size boxes, so it's real easy to make one and run them out there. So what we're going to be doing is mounting it up in the top here, longer ones on the side, and then on the bottom. So basically since I got these all pre-cut, I'm just going to set you up on a time lapse, and I'm going to run through them all. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to click the subscribe button. Thank you. Okay, so here's an up close of what they look like. It looks pretty good. You can't see any of the imperfections of the paneling. And so like that stuff over there will all be hidden when I put that piece of trim in. Okay, so it's kind of hard to see on here, but there's these nail holes. They're on the face of the boards here. And I want to fill them up because I'm going to be painting these. I could use wood putty, but I think actually a better thing for this is I'm actually going to be using spackle. This is a DAP heavyweight spackle. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this because I'm actually going to fill any imperfections in the wood. And then I'm going to go through and sand it. It should leave a much smoother finish. I'm not going to really film me doing this because it's kind of tedious and boring, and even a time lapse I think would look pretty boring. I'm just going to get it out there. Okay, so it's pretty easy to tell when it's dry because it turns really white. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand it with this sanding sponge. It's a 320 grit, as you can see. It should knock it down pretty easily. I'll film me doing a few of them. Better. Last night I spent quite a bit of time priming the first coat. I'm going to do a second coat to kind of even it out a little bit. You can probably see it in the pictures. It's not even. That happens a lot with primer because you cut in the corners and then you paint the center. The center doesn't get quite as much as the corners. So you put 2 coats on it and it thins out. When you're done, you can go back over it, and if you see any really high areas, you can sand over them to make it smoother. That's the next step in this process. But last night while I was priming this, I'm going to preface this next part because this is going to be a little bit about me more than the actual building of these cabinets. So if you don't want to know about me, which is fine, and my family and how I got to wanting to do this YouTube and how I learned how to do stuff, while I'm turned around working on this stuff, just fast forward to that part. Then you don't have to know anything about me, which is great. But if you do want to, and you choose to listen to this, that's even better. So I need to apologize to my mother's side of the family because in the last video, I said that I thought that I learned most of this stuff from TV and just random things. And as I was priming last night, a bunch of memories flashed back in my head, which is weird. Life does that to you. I thought about the first time I learned about what primer was. I actually remember what it was because I was probably about 10 years old because my uncle Scott was finishing their basement. I remember helping him frame out the walls, and help as in I was a gopher. You need to go get this and go for this and go for that. I was probably more of a hindrance than I was a help to anybody. But I was there, and what made me think about the primer is that we got done framing it out, got done drywalling, which as a kid is fun because you get to snap the sheet and make the cut, but that's about it. My younger cousins came up. One of them came up. I don't remember who exactly it was. And they were telling me how they were going to get to paint rainbows on the wall, and it was going to be so exciting. Which, okay, I want to paint rainbows on the wall because that just seems crazy to be able to just do whatever you want on walls. And my uncle says to me, it's just primer. Evidently, I'm supposed to know what it is. So I'm like, oh, it's just primer. Okay. And so I'm jealous. But for like the next, I think it was about 2 weeks before I went back, I'm just super jealous because he's going to have me come back to help put the paint on, but not the primer, which, is the fun part because you get to paint all the stuff on the walls. So when I came back to help him paint and it was just white, I'm like, what's this? He's like, that's primer. I'm like, oh, so I get why you get to paint whatever you want on there because it doesn't matter because it's all going to come out white. So I tell you this story because through remembering that story, I remembered a lot of other stuff. I can remember back to my grandpa on my mom's side. This story goes back to I was probably 5 or 6. My grandpa was remodeling the kitchen in their house. I was there, and I gotta give credit to the men on my mom's side of the family because deal with the kid while you're trying to get work done, it's not easy. I think that's a problem that we all have nowadays is that we don't necessarily want to take the time to teach younger people how to do things. So I want to make sure I thank them for doing that for me. I'll admit that I didn't do that for my kids as much as I should have. As a kid, I can say I was forced to. I didn't really have a choice, which is now thinking back on it, a good thing. At the time, it was horrible, but that's like anything else in the world. Just because you don't like it right now doesn't mean it's not going to be a good thing in the future. Sometimes you got to go through stuff that you don't understand, but it's going to make you better in the long run. This is a very meandering story or information about myself. So I hopefully you listen to this, kind of get a better picture of me. So going back to my grandfather, 5 or 6, and he's remodeling his kitchen, and he had this tape measure, and he was teaching me how to use a tape measure. I remember it was red and black, a 12-foot tape measure, nothing fancy, like probably as generic as you could get. I just kept playing with, rolling it out and bringing it back in and letting it snap, and it's fun because you're a kid. You're not really actually there to help. You're just there to hinder and maybe learn something. So eventually it breaks. It won't roll up like it's supposed to. And I remember my grandpa gave it to me. He's like, you can have it now. I thought it was the coolest thing ever because my grandpa gave me this present. He was probably extremely upset because I broke his tape measure. Maybe he wasn't. Didn't remember that until yesterday when all of a sudden all these memories of all these projects that I did with. But he kind of taught me that it was okay to always want something and you're always improving what you have. So anyhow, that's kind of where my family taught me that you can do all this stuff by yourself if you can figure it out. I've built a lot of things. And then that gets me to another thing. My wife always asks me, how do I know how to do all this stuff? And I guess I've been lying to her for the last 10 years because I honestly didn't remember all this until last night. We've been married for a little over 10 years. The whole time, not really because I think she wanted to, but she's put up with my projects. Well, I've done quite a bit of the priming here, and you guys have been listening to me for I don't know how long, but I do appreciate you listening to it if you did. Hopefully you learned a little bit about me and I just ruined the sweater. I think me saying little stories about myself is going to become part of the channel, or at least about my life. I've done a lot of different things over my life. I think some of my stories are fun. I'll always try to tell you that, hey, I'm going to do stories, so if you don't want to listen to them, like this, I'm turned around backwards to you, so I said at the beginning that if you didn't want to listen to it, wait until I turn around. Hopefully people like that. If they don't, then I'll stop doing it. But I watch a lot of different YouTube channels and I kind of like to get to know the people that you're watching, an idea where they came from. Thanks for listening to me. I'm going to continue to prime the rest of this for its second coat. Then we're going to let it dry for a while. I'll see you in a little while. Doing the inside trim in there, I'd like to lie to you and tell you that I did a perfect job and there's no seams that you can't see. But that's not what this channel is about. There are definitely seams that you can see, and I'm going to hide them. Not hide them, just fix it up. It's what most people do with trim, even in high-end houses. When you trim around the base of it, you use caulk. This is it's made by GE, siliconized acrylic caulk. I don't know whatever it is. It's a decent painter's caulk. So what I'm going to do is, I'll try to bring you in here, is I'm going to caulk around the parts where you can see cracks. There's a few of them around it, and then also where like the pocket holes are, I'll go through and fill those up the best I can too. We're going to show you how to do that. I'm going to see if I can get you in here so I can get you a good angle at it as well. You can see right here there's a crack, and then there's the 2 pocket screws there. We're going to use this caulk and try to fill it up. So to do that, I cut it a 45-degree angle the best I could, and the slight thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spread a bead of caulk. And right now it's real lumpy and bumpy. And to smooth it out, this is just a paper towel that I wetted down. And you're going to use your finger. So you get your finger pretty wet. Then you just run your finger along it, clearing off when it gets to be too much on your finger. And these pockets are not going to completely disappear, but it'll make it so it's a lot less obvious. And when we come through and fill it with the cover it with the paint, it will be hardly noticeable. So I'm going to go through the rest of all of them and get that done. Let it dry. And the next step after that would be if I need to do any surface sanding and then paint. So I started cutting in all of the top area where I need a ladder while I wait for the caulk to dry. You can see that I'm going to be painting the whole thing gray. I'm not going to really show you me painting because painting is pretty much a pretty obvious thing how to do. So, but this is how I got so far. I'm going to keep going, and I think I finally finished all of the trimming it out. That took forever. But so the next step is for me to roller the middle part, and I'll get that done and I'll show you when I'm all done. So I just finished the first coat of paint on it. I think that took longer than it did to actually build it. I'll show you the type of paint that I use and everything before I do the next coat. I kind of need a break now because I think that took me 5 hours. I got the whole first coat on. Pretty happy with it. It's this stuff turns out pretty smooth. It needs another coat so it completely covers it. I was going to show you guys what I used. It's a Dutch Boy Premium Plus cabinet door and trim paint. I did it in a satin because I didn't want to have it be gloss. And the color I picked out was refined gray. I like the look of it. I might go back and I think I'm going to do something different with the bench area, but I haven't quite decided on that though yet. But so the next step is basically I'm just going to go through and make sure I hit all the areas that I missed. I'm not going to do an entire second coat everywhere, but at least on the areas on the lower part here where it's going to be commonly touched. I'm going to do that. Once again, I'm not going to show you that because it's painting and it's pretty boring. So I have all of the final coat of paint on there, and I'm going to kind of show you overall how it looks. I'll give you a little up close on it here. I'm trying to give it so you can see the sheen on it. It turned out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. It's pretty smooth. It's covered up overall. Through this process of painting and priming, I learned that I hate beadboard because it's a real pain to get these all painted out. That being said, it's not really necessary to say. I just wanted to let you know that if you're thinking of a project like this, maybe you stay away from beadboard because it's a pain in the ass. The next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to put the marks and mount the hook. So there's going to be a hook in the center here for a main jacket. I have to go get some, and I wanted to put a lower, smaller hook where you can hang like snow pants behind it. So the first one, if you remember when I put the boards up in the back for the rails, I left one down. There's the top one, there's one down a little way. So if I put it down 5.5 inches, it'll be right in the middle of that. Actually, I'll do center first. Center is, so this is about 18 inches wide, so we're going to do about 9 inches, which is right in the middle of that bead there. And then we're going to come down 5.5 inches and make a mark. We're going to say that's center. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we want it to be decently close. So these are the hooks I'm going to use. These are actually the hooks that I had hanging up here before where there was coats on at the very beginning. So I'm just reusing those. But so we're going to mount it up in there. Like I said, it's real simple because we have the backer board in there. Sorry for the shadows. I don't know how I could light this without me showing a shadow. We'll just have to deal with it. I actually like these hooks a lot. But another thing about them is you got to put in this case, a drill, but whatever you're using to drive in the screw, it's blocked by the actual hook itself. Maybe that'll be blind me while it's doing it. And then Phillips screws also do that. They skip, which they're actually supposed to. It's designed, the Phillips screw was designed to do that so that you didn't strip it out as easily. Whereas the torque screw, it locks in so well that it's not supposed to slip at all. Okay. And that's cleated into that back cleat there that's anchored into the studs. So you could hang quite a bit off of that. until you cover it up. So I think that'll fit in there pretty well. Like I said, I kind of want to put a hook in there too so you can have snow pants underneath there. When I was installing these last few hooks here, my floodlight died because it's a battery powered floodlight. When it died, it kind of made me thought, well, it'd be kind of cool to get some lights to go up here to backlight this and have it as kind of like a night light. So I got this Patriot lighting. It's motion sensing. The only kind of disadvantage of that is I have to mount a sensor up here. So we're going to try to hide that as best I can. But with it being motion sensing, it could just be when you walk in, it'll turn them on. So I think it'd be pretty cool. I'm going to get this figured out and get it mounted. So to mount it, what I had to do is I had to drill a hole behind the rails there in the plywood for that back runner. And then I just fished it behind there and taped up the backside of this faceboard here that mounted it up and made it look pretty awesome. So I got them all installed and it gives it a pretty cool glow effect. I have them on right now. Here, let me turn them off. That's them off. It's not dark in here, so I'll try to do this again later. And that's them on. It's a pretty cool effect. They were $13, so for $13 it turned out pretty cool, I think. Oh, yay! I think they look pretty cool. So this is what they look like at night as a nightlight. Okay, so that is it for now with the Cubbies. I did get everything put in back in here. This is all the stuff plus more that was in those Cubbies before. So I'm going to kind of go through how I got laid out here. First, you got your boots on the bottom in the drip pants. We have snow pants on the bottom. We have extra snow pants on the top up there. So I got a bunch of jackets hung up here. We got spare jackets up there for when they were kids. I always kept their kids' jackets because I figured that eventually maybe they'll have kids and we'll need spare jackets. We have helmets up there. I figured out actually just put the gloves next to the helmet is a pretty good place for them. I'm going to be working some Cubbies over there in a minute here. This is the other corner of the mudroom here. And I had those Cubbies that were on top of the original dog crate. And I want to put them here. They're 12-inch Cubbies and they're 3 high, so they're 3 feet tall. I think they'll look really nice here. I have this leftover plywood from the storage system. I ripped it down to 8 inches wide, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a toe kick to lift them up. I'm going to do that for you here. I'm just going to set you on a time lapse. These are 8 inches long, and you'll watch me figure it out and cut it all up. There they are. I'm still going to have to figure out how I'm going to mount them in. Anchor it up. So I anchored that cleat in there to the wall, and then I screwed or nailed through the side of it into that cleat. Up in there, I anchored that cleat to the stud in the wall, and then I nailed to the top down on that one. In the middle here, I just toe-nailed between the two so that they lock into each other. So I know you were thinking that toe kick is going to look horrible because it's got all that nasty exposed wood there. Well, I was thinking the same thing until I went to my scrap pile, and I realized that I have every intention of wrapping the wall that's behind it and behind the other storage with log siding. So I had some scrap and now it looks good. It's all covered in log siding and I got what I had left over, one piece up the side there. So that wall through the wall over here through over to that wall is all going to be covered with log siding. I think it ended up pretty good. It was just a little small extra project that I was able to take care of today. It will actually be a nice place to put your keys on when you come inside. The little hole in the back there, I've done this before, kind of creates a giant pit of doom. So I'm going to have to figure out what type of a countertop I want to put on top of it. But then once I get that all figured out, it'll be pretty awesome. This will be the end of the mudroom series for a while. I did these because I was trying to get a concept in my head to be able to do them somewhere else. Until I get through all the other projects I already bought materials for, I'm not going to be finishing out the rest of this room. I'm going to try to start turning this into more of like a vlog of what I do in a week instead of individual projects. I might pull those projects out of the vlog part and make them into a complete DIY thing. But I think the vlog is more what I want to go for because that's what I watch. I guess it would be like a DIY vlog. Hopefully you like that. If you do like that, you can give me a comment that you think I should go that way. I'd appreciate it. Comments, I think, help the YouTube thing talk and promote me more to more people. So we're growing though. We're up to 58, which is pretty amazing for only being a little over a month. I'm pretty happy with it. I mean, I want to make this channel big enough that revenue from it could help offset some of the costs to do these projects. So I'm going to end the video on that. We did finish up the Cubbies here, and we worked on some other stuff in the room here as well. I want to thank you for watching the video this far. I do appreciate it. Hopefully inspired somebody to get out there and actually move their butt and maybe build something. Tools that I use for this are not too fancy. The fanciest thing I think I use was laser level, but you could use just a regular level for that. I use a table saw, but you could use a circular saw. There's not, the router is the only thing that you couldn't really use a lesser tool of. I'll show you when I make imperfections, I can tell you about them. That's kind of going to be my thing. There are a few things on this, nothing too bad. A little thing here I could have filled in, and the boards don't line up perfectly. But for me, it's amazing because I think I spent less than $500 on it. I appreciate you watching the video. Thank you. Hopefully I inspired you to get out there. May God bless you and you have a great day. I'll see you next time.